80s named Lynn Enger. Lynn, L-I-N. He and his brother Leif wrote together a number of
we have their books.
Yes, and now he's teaching at Moorhead State, the one who was teaching here creative writing at University of Minnesota State, Moorhead. So.
We've been trying to find a connection, but so far I haven't found one.
You know, wealth wasn't the goal of Norwegians. It
Sure.
was the acme of their achievement would be writing a book.
Sure.
Or writing. They were very literate, and of course Ibsen is a typical example.
Absolutely.
I went to his plays there. You had a question about Roald, the author, about giants.
Did he come from around this area, or is he?
Well,
His wife did. His wife came from, was a descendant from, the mother was from Blackhammer, Otterness.
Okay.
But they moved to, she married a Burdahl and moved to South Dakota. And so Jenny Burdahl then married Willie Rolwad.
Okay.
Well, that answers
Yeah,
your
because we
question.
visited their homestead when we were in Sioux Falls. Because they have it at the college.
Okay.
Park now.
And they say Rolwad came back to, especially Blackhammer to visit, so he's been in Spring Grove.
Okay, well, because of Giants in the Earth name.
yes.
Yeah.
I thought that perhaps that.
Who was Mr. Johnson then, who wrote the book about
He came from Ringerike, Norway.
Ringerike?
Ringerike, yeah. And
That's where Mrs. Enger came from.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And they lived east of town, where actually my cousin lives today. It was where Wes Johnson lived.
Well, he's the one who wrote about Peter Enger and the Svartboka. Svartboka.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
he
cute
had the
little story in
Svartboka.
there about him.
It says that he could cure bleeding without even seeing the person.
Oh my.
You just had to think about him,
Oh.
and they had to, believe in it.
Sure, sure.
And then when I went to Norway, I visited Mari Enger, who had married Petter Bakke. And on the Bakke farm, old grandfather Bakke was there, and he said, now remember, the Svartboka is buried over under that tree. We don't have it anymore.
Oh.
So he wanted to make sure that we weren't going on the Svartboka.
Yeah, nobody wanted to be in possession of a black book.
No.
Yeah.
But in another place it said that Peter Enger only used his powers for good, not evil, so therefore he was not from the devil.
Okay.
Oh
my.
Johnson book.
So we were glad to hear that. Well, now I have a little instrument, a bleeder, that, our great-grandmother used, Bestamore used, and my grandfather used on her, too.
For bloodlet.
To bloodlet.
Sure, sure.
And then my father ended up with it, and he gave it to me.
Except I have one too.
And you
Do
have
you?
one.
I have one someplace in my house, but I don't know where I got it.
It was a very common method of working with people.
But my mother and dad wouldn't do it, so she'd go and visit the
Yeah, Earl, Shirley's father wrote about the history of their childhood, and he said that he remembered, that sometimes Bestamore would come over and then they'd have to leave. So,
Because
yeah.
But Ringerike reminded me of the fact that Mrs. Enger her family was from Ringerike, from Odal.
Odal. Okay.
And when she was here, they had 2 babies here, and then they had an epidemic. There was an epidemic.
There's all kinds of diphtheria.
Diphtheria, I think. Because the family story is that she was knitting stockings for the little kids, and the neighbor came over and said, "Don't bother, they'll be dead next week."
Oh.
And they were.
Oh.
So they went in the epidemic, and that's the one that's the tombstone up in the
By the church.
in the park.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, they're 2 oldest
It
children.
was a real tragedy.
Yeah.
It wiped out the children.
Sure.
And I wondered if they didn't bring it with them because they had an epidemic in Chicago. And I remember one of my great-grandfathers fled Chicago with his family because of what was going on in Chicago, killing the children.
Sure.
What that was diphtheria.
Sure. Well, and infant mortality, certainly back then was not what it is today. You had a lot of
And
risk.
women in
Yes.
childbirth.
In childbirth, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Cholera was another one, because one of our great-great-grandparents, they lost 2 babies in 2 years to cholera on their death certificates.
So we're really lucky to be here when you think of the odds.
Yeah, well, we talk about that because,
We're survivors.
yeah, and Grandma Maddie on our Grandma Engers side, Grandma Engers side, when she came, she was the only one left of the kids.
They started out with 3 daughters. They got shipwrecked in Limerick and had to stay. Took them about 3 months to get here, and they lost 2 children on the way. She was the only one that survived.
So where would we be if she didn't
Well,
have it?
exactly. Yeah, my Norwegian ancestors come because the father is killed in a fishing boat accident, and he's 19 and he's the leader of his family and no occupation, so he comes to America with his mother and sister. But did you have any idea what brought your ancestors originally to America? Was it just the promise of something
I've
new?
wondered a lot
Oh, the
about
promise of America.
Yeah.
Sure.
Land.
I've wondered about Elling because he was the oldest son, so he should have inherited everything. But he came because I think he just wanted the adventure.
His father sold his.
But not till after Elling left.
Well, Ellie, I understood from Per that his grandfather, there were 2 brothers and one sold out to the other one.
They
When
did.
they came to America.
Okay.
Sold out his share.
Sure.
He sold
they
to
were
the
very particular about
Jobsteds, who was
property.
his
Oh, yes.
daughters. Yeah.
And I also found out something. I had 3 great-grandfathers who came, and they were all 3rd sons.
Really?
That's
I thought
interesting.
that was interesting. So they had nothing.
Sure, sure.
The first one inherited it, the second one became a teacher probably.
Sure.
And the 3rd one left.
Yeah.
Or had to marry a girl.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
In fact, one of the Engers over there married a girl. 'Cause,
That had a farm.
Austin, what was Austin's daughter? Oscar. Anyway, they came on the bark Oscar.
Oh, okay.
That's how they got here.
And where do you know where they disembarked? In Quebec.
In
Okay.
Quebec.
Okay.
And then down.
Sure.
I suppose the Erie Canal.
Very possibly. Yeah.
You don't know how they got here.
Sure.
Well, most of them say they came through the Great Lakes, but
Off ships into
they didn't have
Milwaukee or
trains back
Chicago.
then.
Yeah.
So they came on boats.
Sure.
Maybe Door County.
Maybe.
You don't know.
Well, they settled first in Wisconsin
Mhm.
near La Crosse.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's where they came into, and then they,
Came across.
yeah,
Weren't there trains at that time?
in 1861, not very much,
The majority of the grand trains were built, after the Civil War, because a lot of things were used up to do that, and it isn't until the 1870s that they really start setting down and
Okay.
do the transcontinental railroad. Is the 1870s as well.
When the Engers came, they had to come as a group, so they came directly, I thought, to Spring Grove.
Since they had someone
Because
here already,
they knew
sure.
the Mullers, and then didn't they know some of the people who were in Spring Grove?
Oh, I'm sure they did. This
That's
was
why they
probably
came
their
here.
eventual
Sure.
goal, but they couldn't come all the way here on a boat.
No.
They had to get off somewhere.
They were
came.
delayed too because they had a baby.
In the process. Oh,
Yeah, they had a baby and it survived, and she lived here in Spring Grove.
Okay.
What was her name? Goodhild. Goodhild. She
yeah.
never married.
huh?
Goodhild was a sister of Mrs. Borison and
Okay.
Mrs. Ludall,
Yeah.
the other sister, and Peter.
Yeah.
Oh, fun. Did they ever go back to visit to Norway?
They
or-
didn't.
They did not. Okay.
I took my mother to a travelogue one time, and she saw Norway, and she sat there for a long time, and she said, "Why did they ever leave?"
That's what I thought this summer. I
But
mean,
they
the
had
more
to
you
leave.
go, the more
Sure.
beautiful it gets.
Yeah.
But they were probably
Which
so.
can't eat beauty.
You can't eat it, yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I can remember the uncles coming to visit us on the farm. That'd be your grandfathers. My cousins, they'd be my cousins, wouldn't
Yeah.
they?
No, our dad was Our dads were your
was my
cousins.
first cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'd be your uncle.
And they'd all
They'd be your
come.
uncles.